I'm currently cycling through Ísafjörður in the far north of Iceland, and not so many people around here. You know, I'm not a religious person, but if you're here and you see this, you can't help but feel something a little bigger than yourself. Anyway, it kind of gets me in the mood though to talk about today's topic, which is Norse mythology and how it states that us humans are actually gods. Pretty neat, huh? Okay, I'm gonna keep cycling a little bit more.
I just told you who I thought I was, a god!
Alright, before we get into the actual title of this video, let's take a minute to talk
basics.
Before good old Christianity hit Northern Europe around 1,000 years ago, another belief was all the rage. One that was made up of fantastical stories about gods, dwarves and humans, and that told the whole story of life and the cosmos from beginning to end. Back then people used to call it the tradition. Today we call it Norse mythology. A body of old mystic texts that were recorded hundreds of years ago in a small town in the west of Iceland.
Now, of course, Norse mythology is an immensely complex and intricate topic, which is composed of countless stories and records of even more sources, which are sometimes unreliable or just simply unknown. But the main reason you know characters like Thor or Odin or Loki, for that matter, mostly thanks to one single source. And I'm not talking about Marvel, I'm talking about the man who lived, worked and died where I'm walking right now.
Snorri Sturluson, apparently pronounced like that, was an Icelandic poet and politician, and quite a big player during his time, who is also responsible for creating a text called the Prose Edda, which is basically the Norse equivalent to the Bible. The folkloric character of these stories made them incredibly popular, causing them to be told like fairy tales from generation to generation. Content-wise, the Edda is different to other religious texts, in many ways. When I read it myself, however, what surprised me the most was just how different of an approach they took to us and the human condition. Now to illustrate this, I'd like to show you something. This is an artist's rendition of Yggdrasil, the famous world tree that connects all the different planes of existence to one another. What we are gonna do is look at different sections along the tree, stopping by wherever there is something interesting that we can explore. Starting at the roots of the tree in Hell. Not to be confused with Hell, although in this Hell there are also dead people, though not quite in the same way. Also there is no connection to Hel, who, you know, also wants to kill people. It is actually named after Hel, the goddess of the same name. Maybe we just call it the underworld. This is a place where some of the dead just are. In contrast to other religions, it is not a place of punishment or eternal suffering, because in Norse religion there is no real fleshed out concept of an afterlife. There simply is no heaven humans try to reach throughout their lives, or hell they learn to fear and try to avoid at all costs. Because there is no moral judgment. The idea is that all the great things in life, the best and most terrible, the joyful and the heartbreaking, are not to be experienced in some afterlife, but in this world and in this life. This is it. This theme is embodied by Hel, the goddess, who rules in the underworld, one side of her face being white and beautiful, the other being dark and dead. Vanitas is the concept of the passing of beauty, the awareness that all living things must eventually perish and wither away. Finding such a contrast within one character in these writings makes it seem that Norse religion was accepting of death being the ultimate end to a finite life, instead of the transition to something eternal. Moving on to the place where the Edda's protagonists live.
Asgard!
Looking at the home of the gods gives us insight into a wide range of unique and interesting characters. Specifically interesting to us is Odin, the highest of the gods, his son Thor, Loki, and the goddess of love, Freya. These are among the most significant gods in the Edda, and of course they are the most prominent as well. But there is another reason why they are especially interesting for the sake of this video. They are faulty. They have problems and they struggle with themselves, things that are typically associated with humans and not with gods. Take Thor for example. He's the god of thunder, he's strong and has a good sense of justice. But he's not really that bright and extremely gullible. Because he's so naive, he's easy to manipulate and often falls victim to Loki's mischief. Loki, on the other hand, is very intelligent. Using his wits, he always manages to pull his head out of trouble in any given situation. He's also quite a charming character, because while he does prank a lot of the other gods, it's never anything too serious. It's more about entertainment rather than doing actual damage. Well, at least that is the case until you find out that he's incredibly psychotic, directly responsible for the death of a fellow god, and leading an army against Asgard in the attempt to destroy the world. An event known as Ragnarok, by the way. Also, just for the weirdness factor, you remember this snake? It's Loki's child. Yeah, alongside his other children, a ferocious wolf and Hel. All of which he conceived with a female troll. And that's all the Loki trivia we got time for. Freya is the goddess of love, and the weakness of Norse gods may become most apparent with her. She had quite a troubled past. The love of her life left her at a young age without any real reason, only never to be seen again. She cannot make sense of this, and since then is grieving and on the lookout for him daily. Something the other gods simply can't understand. They ask themselves, when she's the one to govern all the love in the world, how come she's incapable of controlling her own feelings? While these three are representative of certain human traits, it is Odin, the proverbial godfather, who takes on a really special role. Because his main characteristic is being restless. He never gives up, always wanting to acquire more knowledge, even going as far as to rip out his own eyeball in order to gain more wisdom. There is one occasion in the Edda where Odin learns of his approaching death through a prophecy. But instead of accepting his fate, he challenges the unknown and chooses to go forward, fighting for his cause either way. Snorri did not just simply invent these traits for Odin. He took them from us and built his character from our own properties, making the highest of the gods essentially human. Speaking of us, what exactly is our role in Norse mythology? When humans are created in the Edda, it is not done for a reason. The gods' motivation is not to give us some purpose. In fact, they have no plan with us at all. The simple explanation we're given in the text is that gods just like to play. When Odin and his brothers are just out on a beach one day fooling about and having fun, they stumble upon some driftwood and, just for the heck of it, form it into the first humans. It wasn't a conscious decision that led them to it, it was just fun. Very different to other creation myths, since we are not assigned the status of single greatest creation ever. The world already existed without us, and we are just randomly thrown into the mix. Kind of like our own situation if you think about it. Us humans not having a real purpose for being in this world can be a saddening thought, but it shouldn't be. Exactly because humans don't have a greater role in the big picture, we can choose to detach from some imaginary responsibility and each choose to make the most of the time and resources we have available in this one life. After all, Norse religion really is less about faith or belief, but about telling a story that offers us a pretty wise perspective on ourselves. Visiting the place where it all started all those years ago made me realize why of all places Iceland was the birthplace of Norse mythology. Because as I concluded while I was over there,
if anyone tells me
that there's no magic here in Iceland. They're either lying, stupid or blind. Just have a look for yourself. Shit! It's been almost 1,000 years since the Edda was written, but its themes have lived on, being interpreted over and over again and leaving an imprint on our culture up to this day. And the last time I checked, that was the textbook definition of a legacy.